Well, Hurricane Sally continues to churn just towards our southeast, and the track pushing eastward also continuing as a trend, and we will see this develop as we head into the night. Stay tuned for the latest.
The storm surge is rising across the area. We're live in Pascagoula with the latest on Sally's impacts.
You're watching WXXV News 25, your local choice at 5:30.
Well, good evening, Gulf Coast, and thanks for joining us. I'm Taylor Rubach, and as Hurricane Sally is approaching, more rain and strong winds are moving into South Mississippi. Sally is now expected to make landfall early Wednesday near the Alabama-Florida state line. We're going to toss it on over to meteorologist Ryan Mahan with a quick look at our forecast. Ryan, how's Mississippi looking?
Well, South Mississippi is looking pretty much the same way it did yesterday as we were heading into around this time frame, because the storm really isn't all that much closer or further away than it was yesterday. Because putting my finger right here on what seems to be at least the center of the eye, now that does change, you could see over this 2-hour loop, it basically doesn't move at all. I think that speed is at 5 knots or less, and it's really not expected to speed up in a significant way until it moves further towards the north, which will happen over the next about 24 hours, and eventually again that what we call recurving, taking it towards the northeast and towards the Atlantic. So eventually all of that will happen. In the meantime, it's just sitting just south of us and churning, and normally that would be a really bad situation because it's sitting out there over the warm water and it would just gain more moisture and gain more strength, but it's actually having the opposite effect because it's sitting there churning up this water so much that it's pushed all that warmer water away, and now it's starting to bring up cooler water from below the surface. It's called upwelling, and it's taking away some of the energy that the storm has. So it's dropped from category 2, borderline category 3, where the forecast was yesterday, now that it won't even top 90 miles per hour as it continues to close in as a category 1. So still looking like a very interesting storm, especially going to cause flood and storm surge issues. We're seeing some storm surge reports here right around in this area. We'll see later on in the newscast from one of our cameras, and the water is very close to the road, each of these denoting an area where water could either be already over the road or is imminent. And we will likely see more of these because, look, the storm's not even in the frame. We're just barely seeing the outer northwestern edges of this storm, and that tends to be, at least the way the storm is set up at the moment, the side with far less activity, far less moisture, far less convection. So it's something we'll continue to watch. Rainfall totals obviously pretty low on the western side. Many of these areas starting to drop off of the watches and warnings that have been issued for Sally as it continues to move in. We are seeing trace amounts of rainfall already kind of moving into the Jackson County area, which is where most of our forecasts will be focusing on, because unfortunately, as Sally continues to develop, our forecasts and our warnings and everything may not be relevant for all of South Mississippi at this point, but certainly still is for the extreme eastern edge, as we're now seeing that track kind of pulling into Mobile Bay. So nothing just yet. Those winds are starting to rise. We're seeing at about 20 earlier here in Gulfport. It was at 25. Ocean Springs showing a 31 mile per hour wind, so getting very close to tropical storm force. These are sustained. It has been blowing here at the station all day long and sounds like it is pretty rough at times. So we have more of this to go. It's still a very long storm ahead of us. So it is weakening, but still on the strong side as a category 1. The track continues to shift east, now in eastern Mobile Bay, and very likely could continue towards the Alabama-Florida line. Positive South Mississippi trends. Rainfall totals are falling, storm surge totals are falling, and the winds are dropping as well. But obviously it's still something we need to watch as it develops, because we still have over, let's see, at this point, 14 hours before it makes landfall. So a lot can still happen in that time, but things are looking up. I'll have the details and the rest of the AccuWeather forecast coming up in just a few minutes.